What's up, people, and Happy New Year. We're going to start this new year off with a bang because I see something that's rearing its head again. And when I originally saw it, my brain couldn't make sense of it because it's just so profoundly, what's the word? Bigoted, I guess you could say. And mind you, this is coming from the tolerant side of things, right? So what this video is about is essentially what identity politics does to a hobby, right? Any hobby, not just Warhammer, not just Star Wars, not just D&D, any hobby. Even this applies to everything, even not even just hobbies. We're talking about in business, we're talking about in, I don't know, economics, politics. It messes things up, for lack of a better word. And when you look at everything through a lens of social justice, which on its surface is a good thing, right? Because you want to be aware of your privileges and, when people are being oppressed, stuff like that. But when you look at everything through that lens, then you're never going to find anything good. Period. Right? When you walk outside and if you see a black person and the first thing you think is, I can't believe how oppressed that man is. That guy might be doing better than you. Same thing with a Hispanic. Same thing with an Asian person. Same thing with an Indian person. If the first thing you think of is oppression and bigotry and just all these things that keep people down, you're never going to see any of the good stuff, ever. And that's kind of what happens with hobbies. The difference is that with a hobby, people will start looking at things that aren't even related to reality and making these one-to-one connections that don't exist, right? So, for instance, if I go into a hobby, any sort of hobby, let's say it's Lord of the Rings or D&D, even Warhammer, and if I look at an orc and my mind starts creating parallels between orcs and black people, that's not normal thinking, right? No normal person is going to be like, oh, this reminds me of those people, right? You would think. So 9 times out of 10, the people that this side says, oh, those are the racists, those are the bigots, those are the oppressors, those are what other buzzwords they want to throw at you. It's usually that side that is making those comparisons. The side that's hurling the accusations are usually the ones that are making these parallels between fictional things and reality. And I'm going to show you an example of this because it's probably one of the more egregious examples that I've ever seen. And for whatever reason, on the first day of the fucking New Year's, it's right there in front of me. And I'm just like, I wish I could never see this again. But you people want examples, so I'm going to give you an example. Here we go. I hope y'all are ready for this. So that guy says, especially when the Tyranids are a racist dog whistle to represent Jews like me. That's why they love the Imperium. First of all, I've never met a person that made a one-to-one comparison between Jewish people and Tyranids. Ever. I haven't. The people I associate with haven't. What? How politically and ideologically brain-rotted do you have to be to compare a world-ending hive of space bugs to Jewish people? Does that make sense? To you, as a normal person, does that make sense? The answer is no. To which Bitshammer, who is arguably one of the more loud progressive people in this hobby, says, they use Gene Stealer cult for trans people. I've never seen that. Orcs for black people. We just talked about that. Tau stand in for Asian people when they're not used as a communist analog. Okay. The greater good is technically a communist analog. But I have never seen people compare Tau to Asian people. Hell, if you look at the Imperial Herald trash, they use Marines as race traders and have the Guard as their Ubermensch stand-in. First of all, the Imperial Herald is obvious satire. Second of all, this tells me everything I need to know about how you feel about yourself and your own race when you're saying that the Imperium, which is a mixture of all types of races and people, men and women, are basically a stand-in for white supremacy, right? Which is, I mean, that's objectively false. But, again, all these people do is look at things through a lens of identity politics, through social justice, through, all these comparisons to reality that aren't there. Now, it's kind of hard to take a person serious when the opposition, the opposite side, is saying, hey, you see that guy over there? That's a bad person. By the way, I'm sorry that the orcs are black people. I'm sorry that the Tau are Asians. And I'm sorry that, gene stealers are trans people. I have never heard a rational person use any of those comparisons. And this is one thing that they like to say. The whole Jews are Tyranids thing, I saw that pop up many times when this was going on. And guess what? It wasn't the bad guys that were making the comparisons. These are the same people that want to call the Imperium, I'm trying to think of all sorts of, I've seen it all at this point. Imperium bad because fascist. We'll just boil it down to that. And it's obvious that they're making comparisons to Nazi Germany when it comes to the Imperium, because I've even seen them go as far as, outside of this example, to where they're saying that the Imperium is fascist because, they're killing other aliens, therefore that's an analogy to the Holocaust. Stuff like that. And it's mind-boggling because your mind doesn't make those connections. Somebody that's not so plugged into identity politics will not make those comparisons, will not jump to those conclusions, will not look at a thing and go, oh, it's actually this, right? But this is what happens. This is what happens to your hobbies. You have people like this where you're using a hobby as escapism and they're wanting to bring reality into it, right? They're wanting to make these comparisons to reality. And that's not healthy at all. Now, if you want to do some sort of study or an analysis of why things are the way they are, if you're writing a fucking term paper, then I could see you trying to create those comparisons in order to prove a point. But on its face, you're not going to go, that thing is this, right? I'm not going to go into the Lord of the Rings and say that, Sauron is actually a one-to-one analogy or one-to-one comparison of, let's think of something crazy here. Sauron is, the patriarchy. There we go. Sauron is the patriarchy and the hobbits are actually the women that Sauron is oppressing, right? As ridiculous as that sounds, that's the same type of logic that they're using. So, I don't get it. This is what I mean when I say that identity politics ruins things. Because you're going into a hobby to have fun. You're going into a hobby to get away from all the bullshit, right? But then you have people that want to bring it in. They want to reel you in to where every single time the hobby comes up, it becomes a political debate. And you see the other argument of, oh, well, this is inherently political. No, it's not. You're making it political. I see that all the fucking time. I get that answer all the fucking time. Oh, well, Warhammer is political. It's political because you're making it political. Not the people that want to have fun and just enjoy the hobby. They're not making it political. You are. And you don't have to do that. Right? but they're so tied into it, they're so ingrained in ideology that that's all they know at this point. And honestly, it's kind of sad. Me, I go into a hobby because I like the setting, I like the characters, I like the lore, I like this, that, and the other. You know, it's something that interests me. It's something that I want to do in my free time or learn about in my free time to get away from all the real world shit. But people can't do that anymore. And I don't understand what broke in people's brains outside of COVID, because everybody was stuck at home and sitting online and finding things to fight and argue about. It doesn't make sense. So there you go. We got a, whatever you want to call this for the new year. I don't know. We'll call this a public service announcement for people that want to bring real world ideology into a hobby. You know, just don't do it. If you can't walk into a store and play a game or talk about the setting without bringing up some sort of, you know, political agenda, you probably don't belong in there. Now, I understand that this is the internet and people are going to argue about stupid shit all day long because they have nothing else to do. But, you know, it starts to bleed over. And when you don't say anything, when you don't draw attention to it, then it just does what it does. And then by then, you're sitting there wondering what happened. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Again, Happy New Year. Hopefully we see less of this in 2024, but I have a funny feeling it's only going to get worse. And, yeah, just enjoy your hobbies. You know, do what you like. Don't try and make it more like the reality that we're stuck in right now.